9 years. That's how long it had been since I'd seen her laugh like that. Head tilted back, eyes sparkling, like the whole world had nothing sharp left to hurt her. I stood by the entrance of the coffee shop, watching her from a distance, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped the paper cup I was holding. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy with them, her friends, her little circle of smiles and whispers. Then my eyes locked on him. A guy I didn't recognize, leaning just a little too close, his shoulder brushing hers. She wasn't pulling away. She was leaning in, laughing like he'd said the funniest thing in the world. That's when the noise in my head started. This high-pitched ringing, like every warning siren in my body was going off at once. She finally turned her head, saw me, and it was like the room went silent. That laugh of hers, the one that made everyone else lean in closer, just died. She froze. For a second, she didn't even blink. She didn't wave or smile. She didn't move. And I just stood there, because what else could I do? Walk over and pretend I wasn't unraveling inside. Pretend that seeing her like this didn't feel like stepping on broken glass with every breath? No, I stayed rooted to the spot, staring at her as if I could somehow read the truth in her eyes. I don't even remember walking out of that place. All I know is by the time I reached my car, my shirt was sticking to my back with sweat and my hands were shaking like I'd been caught in a storm. Something was wrong. Something huge. And I was about to find out just how deep this hole went. When I got home, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Our house has always been filled with noise, either the hum of the TV, Emily's soft music playing in the kitchen, or her voice floating from room to room. But that night, it felt like stepping into a hollow shell. Her car was in the driveway, but she wasn't there. The lights were on, and her coffee cup from that morning was still sitting on the counter, cold and forgotten. I kept pacing the kitchen, staring at the little details that didn't make sense. Her purse was on the chair, but her phone was missing. There was an envelope on the table, half buried under a pile of magazines. My name was written on it in her handwriting. My stomach turned. I picked it up and tore it open with trembling fingers, half expecting divorce papers or some cold, detached note that would crush me in one sentence. Instead, there was just a single piece of paper with 5 words on it. Don't follow me tonight. Please. That was it. No explanation, no signature. Just those words. As if she knew I'd come home and find it. As if she knew I'd be desperate enough to go looking for her. My chest felt tight, and every paranoid thought I'd ever had started screaming at me all at once. Was she with that guy? Was this some twisted game where she was daring me to find out the truth? I grabbed my keys, ready to storm out and drive back to that coffee shop, but something stopped me. It was this small, nagging thought. What if this isn't about another man? What if it's something worse? I went upstairs instead, thinking maybe I'd find something. Anything. That would explain why she'd leave a note like that. And that's when I noticed her closet door was open. There was a suitcase missing from the top shelf. The sight of that missing suitcase felt like a punch in the gut. It wasn't just that she had taken it. It was the way everything else looked untouched, as if she had been planning this for weeks, but left everything intentionally perfect, just to throw me off. Her dresses were neatly hung. Her shoes were aligned, and her perfume still lingered in the air like nothing had happened. But that suitcase being gone, it screamed something was wrong. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the spot where it should have been, and I swear, the room felt like it was closing in on me. I tried to call her 3 times in a row, but all I got was that mechanical voicemail tone that makes you feel like you're shouting into the void. Emily, where are you? I saw you at the coffee shop. What's going on? Please call me back. I muttered into the phone, my voice breaking like I was already begging for something I didn't even understand. I stood up, pacing like a caged animal. That's when I noticed her journal. She never let me read it, said it was just for her thoughts, nothing personal against me, but it was sacred to her. And there it was, sitting on her nightstand, slightly open. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed it like I was drowning, and that journal was the last thing keeping me afloat. The first few pages were normal, lists, random notes, things she wanted to try cooking. But then I turned to a page that made my blood run cold. It was dated just 2 weeks ago. I can't keep lying to him. I can't look him in the eyes and pretend I'm happy anymore. He doesn't see what I see. He doesn't feel what I feel. But if I tell him, it'll destroy him. Maybe it's better if I just disappear. I dropped the journal like it had burned my hands. Was she talking about me? Was there someone else? I felt my chest tighten, like I was about to explode. I didn't know whether to scream or cry or smash something. That's when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before picking up. "Hello," I said, my voice cracking. There was silence at first, just heavy breathing. Then a man's voice, calm, deliberate, said, "If you want to know the truth about Emily, stop looking for her. She's not yours anymore." The line went dead. I stood there, clutching my phone like it was going to explain something, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts. Someone knew where she was. Someone else was involved in this, and they wanted me to stop digging. But how the hell could I stop now? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the dark, my phone on the table, waiting for it to ring again. Every creak of the house felt like it was mocking me, every second stretching into hours. I kept replaying that voice in my head, calm, almost smug, telling me she wasn't mine anymore. Who the hell was this guy? Was it the same one from the coffee shop? I couldn't shake the way Emily's body language had shifted when she looked at him, like I wasn't even part of the same reality anymore. At 4 a.m., I finally snapped. I went through her social media, her email, even the notes on her phone backups that synced to my laptop. Nothing. No clues, no messages, nothing that explained why my wife of 9 years suddenly felt like a stranger. That's when I remembered something she'd said months ago about meeting her friends on Fridays at that same coffee shop. Friends I'd never met. Friends who somehow always came up with excuses not to come over for dinner when I offered. So I waited. Friday came, and I parked my car down the street from that cafe like some desperate, broken-down detective in a cheap thriller. I felt sick, but I couldn't walk away. Not now. I sat there for 2 hours, staring through the windshield, until I saw her arrive. She looked different, lighter, happier, like she was walking into a life where I didn't exist. And then, 10 minutes later, he showed up. The same guy? The one who was too close to her that night. I didn't even realize my hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. He wasn't just some friend. I could see it in the way he touched her back, in the way she smiled at him like he was her secret universe. My stomach turned. I needed to know who he was. I waited until she went inside to grab their drinks. Then I got out of the car and followed him. I don't know what I was planning. Confront him? Ask him what he was doing with my wife. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely think. He was standing just around the corner, talking on his phone. I caught one sentence, and it froze me in place. "Yeah, she's leaving him soon. It's done." I wanted to storm up to him, scream, demand answers, but instead I just stood there like a coward, breathing too hard, my hands shaking. He hung up, and I ducked behind a parked car like some pathetic spy. He looked around, suspicious, like maybe he sensed me watching. Then he walked off, down a narrow alley behind the cafe. I followed. That alley is burned into my memory now. It smelled of stale beer and damp brick, the kind of place you know nothing good happens in. He stopped at a black car and pulled something out of the trunk. I couldn't see what it was, but it wasn't flowers or anything innocent. It looked heavy, wrapped in a tarp. He glanced over his shoulder, and I swear his eyes passed right over me before he drove off. When I went back to the cafe, Emily was gone. Just gone. I called her, straight to voicemail. I drove home, my mind spinning like a broken carousel, and when I walked into the house, there was a second note on the kitchen table. This one said, "Calvin, stop following me. It's not what you think. You'll get hurt." And now, I can't tell if I'm more terrified of losing her or finding out the truth. I spent the rest of that night pacing the living room like a madman, going over every conversation Emily and I had had in the past few months. Every late-night work call. Every time she smiled at her phone and said it was just a friend. I kept telling myself I'd confront her the second she walked through that door, that I'd demand answers, scream if I had to, anything to break through whatever wall she had built between us. But she didn't come home. Not that night. Not even the next morning. By noon the following day, my panic had turned into something darker. I drove around like some deranged investigator, checking that coffee shop 3 times, circling every block like I'd spot her car parked outside some apartment I didn't know about. I even went to her sister's house, pretending I was there to drop off something. But her sister just gave me this tight, uncomfortable smile and said she hadn't heard from Emily all week. That was a lie. I could see it in her eyes, the way she avoided looking at me. I came back home and collapsed on the couch, my mind burning with paranoia. That's when I noticed something on our hallway shelf. A small key I didn't recognize, just sitting there like it had been left for me on purpose. It wasn't for our house. I checked every lock. I checked our mailbox. Nothing. It felt like a breadcrumb, like Emily was either taunting me or begging me to find something. I threw the key in my pocket and decided I needed to talk to someone, anyone, because I was losing it. I called my best friend, Marcus, and spilled everything. The coffee shop, the notes, the mysterious guy, the voice on the phone. I expected him to tell me I was being paranoid. Instead, there was this long pause, and he said, "Calvin, you sure you know everything about Emily?" Something in his tone made my blood run cold. "What do you mean?" I snapped, but he just sighed and said he'd come over. When Marcus arrived, he didn't even sit down. He just looked at me with this pity in his eyes and said, "I saw her last week. She wasn't alone. And man, I think it's the same guy you're talking about." I felt my legs give out. My best friend, someone who never sugarcoated anything, was confirming the one thing I didn't want to believe. I wanted to scream at him for not telling me sooner, but all I could do was sit there, my hands digging into my knees, trying to keep from falling apart. That evening, I decided I couldn't just wait around anymore. I went back to that alley behind the cafe where I'd followed the guy before, half hoping I'd run into him again. Instead, I found something I didn't expect. There was a storage building 2 blocks down, and the same black car I'd seen him driving was parked right outside. The key in my pocket burned like fire. I don't even know how I found the courage, but I tried it. The key fit the storage unit door, and inside, I found something that made my blood run cold. A box with Emily's handwriting on it, and inside, pictures of us. Every anniversary, every trip, all neatly stacked. But there were also photos I'd never seen before. Pictures of her with that man, smiling in ways she hadn't smiled with me in years. There was also a note under the photos, just one line. "This isn't what it looks like. Don't hate me for this." I stumbled out of that storage unit like I'd been punched in the gut, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. I don't know what's worse, thinking she's in love with someone else, or realizing there's something much darker she's hiding from me. I drove home from that storage unit with my head spinning like I was trapped in someone else's nightmare. The photos were burned into my mind, especially the ones of Emily with that man. She wasn't just smiling. She looked alive, like she'd stepped out of the gray life we'd been living and into something brighter, something I apparently couldn't give her. I wanted to hate her for it, but all I could feel was this aching, hollow sadness, like I was watching the woman I loved slip through my fingers without even a fight. I sat in the driveway for nearly an hour, gripping the steering wheel, trying to convince myself that maybe there was still some explanation, some reason why she'd leave me cryptic notes instead of telling me the truth. When I finally walked into the house, my phone buzzed. I looked down, expecting another unknown number, but it was her. Emily. My heart slammed in my chest so hard I thought I might pass out. The message wasn't what I expected. It wasn't an apology or an explanation. It was just 3 words, "Do not call." I stared at the screen, my hands trembling, and then another message came through almost instantly. "Meet me where we first met. Midnight. Alone." My mind raced back 9 years, to that tiny park near her old apartment where we'd met by accident. I didn't know what she was playing at, but I couldn't ignore her. I needed to see her, even if it meant ripping open every wound she'd given me over the past week. The hours leading up to midnight were torture. I kept pacing the living room, reading and rereading that text, wondering if this was a trap, or maybe even some cruel goodbye. Marcus called twice, but I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? "Hey man, I'm meeting my wife in the middle of the night to find out if she's secretly living another life." No, this was something I had to face alone. When I got to the park, the night air was cold and heavy. It felt almost unreal, like the world was holding its breath. I saw her standing near the swings, wearing the same jacket she'd had for years, her hair pulled back like she was trying to look ordinary. But she wasn't ordinary, not to me. Not now. "Emily," I said, my voice breaking as I stepped closer. She didn't smile. She didn't even flinch. Her eyes were tired, almost haunted. "You weren't supposed to find those photos," she said quietly, and I swear, I felt every ounce of air leave my lungs. "What's going on?" I asked. "Who is he? Why are you doing this to me?" My voice cracked on that last part, and I hated how pathetic I sounded, like some fragile man begging for scraps of truth. She glanced over her shoulder, like she was checking if we were being watched. You don't understand, Cal. This isn't about love. It's not what you think. If you knew the whole story, you'd wish you hadn't asked. What story? I demanded, my hands shaking so badly I had to shove them into my pockets to hide it. You're running around with some guy, leaving me notes like I'm a stranger, and now you're telling me it's not what I think? Do you even hear how insane that sounds? She stepped closer, her eyes softening just slightly. I can't tell you everything, not here. Not yet. But that man, he's not who you think he is. He's dangerous. And if you keep following me, he'll know. And then, she stopped, her words cutting off like she'd just realized she said too much. I reached for her hand, but she pulled back, glancing toward the dark path behind her. You need to trust me, Calvin. Just for a little while longer. Please. But before I could say anything, before I could even demand answers, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the park. I stood there like an idiot, my heart pounding, my mind a storm of fear and confusion. What the hell was going on? Was I losing my wife? Or was I losing my mind? When I got back to my car, there was another note tucked under the windshield wiper. It wasn't from Emily. The handwriting was different, rougher, and it sent chills down my spine. It said, "Stop digging, or you'll both regret it." I drove home from the park like a ghost, my mind looping through her words over and over. He's dangerous. You'll wish you hadn't asked. What the hell did that mean? My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was suddenly acting like she was living in some secret spy movie, and I was the clueless idiot who had stumbled into the middle of it. I parked in the driveway and just sat there for a while, staring at the house that now felt like a stranger's home. Every photo of us inside those walls suddenly seemed like a lie, and every shadow made me feel like I was being watched. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. Instead, I started digging. If Emily wouldn't tell me what was going on, I'd find out myself. I went through her laptop, her drawers, even the attic. That's when I found something that made my blood turn to ice. A second phone, one I'd never seen before, taped under a drawer in her desk. It wasn't her normal phone. This one had no case, no apps, no photos of us, just a list of messages from one contact, saved only as A. Most of the messages were short, coded almost, meeting at 10. Don't bring him. Leave the photos where he won't look. But then there was one from just 2 days ago that made my stomach churn. We're running out of time. He's starting to notice. Be ready. I didn't know whether to scream or throw the phone against the wall. Was she talking about me? Was I him? I felt like I was drowning in secrets that weren't even mine. I shoved the phone into my pocket and sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the floor until my vision blurred. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Marcus, my voice shaking so badly I could barely get the words out. She's hiding something, I said, and I think it's worse than an affair. He didn't even sound surprised. I told you, man. Something's off about all of this. If you want, I can ask around. Maybe we can figure out who this guy is. That night, I followed the only lead I had, the storage unit. I went back there, this time determined to search every inch of it. I pried open every box, every drawer, and then I found something that made me stop breathing for a moment. At the bottom of one of the boxes was a small metal case with a lock on it. I didn't have the key, but I wasn't about to let that stop me. I took it home and forced it open with a screwdriver. Inside were papers, documents I didn't understand, some with Emily's name, some with names I'd never seen. There were also photos, recent ones, of me. Pictures of me leaving the house, at work, even at the gas station. Someone had been watching me. I felt this wave of cold terror wash over me as I realized this wasn't just about Emily anymore. Whoever this man was, he had his eyes on both of us. I was still staring at those photos when my phone buzzed. It wasn't Marcus. It wasn't Emily. It was that same unknown number from before. I answered, my voice cracking. Who is this? What do you want? There was a pause. Then the same low, steady voice said, I warned you to stop digging, Calvin. But now you've gone too far. She can't protect you anymore. The line went dead. I sat there, gripping the phone so tightly I thought it would crack, feeling like my world was closing in on me. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just with my wife. He was watching me, waiting for me to make a wrong move. And I had no idea what Emily was caught up in, or if I even had the strength to keep chasing the truth. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to stop. Not now. I didn't sleep that night. I sat there on the floor surrounded by the photos and papers from that metal case, my mind spinning so fast it felt like I was on the edge of breaking. Every part of me wanted to believe that Emily wasn't just betraying me, that there was some reason for all of this secrecy and the lies. But how could I believe that when I had proof in my hands, pictures of her with another man, texts telling me to stop looking for her? By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Emily. I didn't care about her warning or the mysterious threats. I needed to hear her voice. At first, it went to voicemail, but just as I was about to hang up, she picked up. "Calvin," she said, her voice shaky but urgent. "Please, you have to trust me. I can explain everything. Just meet me. I'll send you the address." 20 minutes later, I was driving across town, my stomach in knots. The address led me to an old community hall, the kind of place where people host fundraisers and town meetings. I parked, heart pounding, and walked inside. Emily was there, standing in the middle of the room with the man I'd seen at the coffee shop. I froze in the doorway, every muscle in my body ready for a fight. But then Emily walked toward me with tears in her eyes. "Cal, this isn't what you think," she said. "This man is my brother, Jason. I didn't tell you about him because," she stopped, looking down, trying to find the words. "Because I wasn't sure how. He's been in witness protection for years. He only came back recently because our mother is sick. I had to keep it secret. For his safety and yours." I blinked at her, stunned. "Your brother?" I stammered, looking at Jason. He nodded, his face tired but sincere. "I've been hiding for a long time," he said. "Emily was trying to help me find a safe way to stay close to family without drawing attention. Those photos. We were making sure you weren't followed. We had to keep it quiet." I felt the weight of the past few days crash down on me all at once. Every paranoid thought, every sleepless night. I'd been tearing myself apart, thinking my marriage was over, when the truth was that Emily was protecting me all along. I felt like an idiot, but also like I'd just been given a second chance to breathe. Emily stepped closer, her hands trembling as she touched my face. "I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you," she whispered. "I hated lying, but I couldn't risk you getting pulled into this. I love you, Cal. I always have." The anger and fear melted out of me, and I just pulled her into my arms. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt her heart beating against mine, steady and warm. "I love you too," I said, my voice breaking. "But if you ever pull something like this again, I swear." She laughed, a soft, nervous laugh, but it was the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in years, the kind that reminded me why I fell in love with her in the first place. Jason gave me a nod of respect, and for once, I didn't feel threatened. I felt grateful. That night, Emily and I sat on the porch, watching the sun go down, holding hands like we used to. It wasn't perfect. There was still pain to work through, trust to rebuild, but I realized something important. The love we had wasn't gone. It had just been buried under fear and secrets. And now, for the first time in months, I felt like we could start over. We're still here. We're still us. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.